Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Hare Krishna. Yeah, so today is December 25th, 2020. And it's commonly known as Christmas, commonly known as, so it's the anniversary, at least in some traditions following Jesus, it's the anniversary of the appearance day of Jesus. And I mean, in other traditions, it's like January 7th, some say it's in March. That's another discussion. And when I was living in the village of Ramah, which is a primarily Arab Christian village in North Israel, there's lots of Greek Orthodox, and they would celebrate Appearance Day on, yeah. And so so as we read this morning before Japa, Srila Prabhupada makes it very clear that Jesus is a Shakti Vaishavatar, means he's a Jiva spirit soul, like us in a sense, like Prabhupada. He's a Jiva spirit soul, especially empowered to spread and share and inspire God consciousness, and so he's a Vaishnav. And if we put ourselves in the kind of like in the historical climate, the historical milieu of Jesus, like, and we think like, well, what did Jesus, what did he actually speak? We'll actually realize he did not speak like he's from Alabama, for example.
Oh.
No, it's a surprise for many. Yes, or even Ocala for that matter. You know, some say, no, he spoke Latin. No, actually not.
Last night was the mass was in Latin.
Yeah, yes. Well, that's the language of the church, and Jesus started Christianity. Well, actually, we don't hear anything that I want to start Jesus never said things like I'm going to start Christianity, and that's the language. So no, he didn't speak Latin either. So he actually, well, some say he spoke Aramaic or Hebrew, but we can know for sure that he prayed and he talked to God in Hebrew. There's a place in the book of Matthew, which is one of those main books in the New Testament, and the Pharisees or the Sadducees or some Jewish rabbis at the time, so they asked Rabbi Jesus was a rabbi, so they asked Rabbi Jesus, so what's like the essence, what's the most important of all these teachings? And so Jesus responded, right? So that's Hebrew, and we can say that it's like the Maha Mantra from the Old Testament. The translation is, when Jesus was asked, what's the most important instruction? Love God with all your heart, all your soul, all your might. And so he's quoting a verse from Deuteronomy, which is in the Old Testament, one of those books in the Old Testament, one of the five books of the Torah, Deuteronomy. There's Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Deuteronomy, and Numbers. And so now actually this v'ahavta, like ahava means love in Hebrew. So love God with all your heart, all your soul, all your might. We can identify this is a quintessentially powerful bhakti verse. So that's why when we say it's not just like a strategy or something to go. No, it's the same as the teachings of Jesus. And we can see that's the essence of his teachings. The essence of his teachings is not be good and go to heaven or something like that. I mean, being good the idea is it's completely Bhagavatam. It's completely Vedic. Yeah, let's follow some sattvic regulations to bring us to love God with all our heart, all our soul, all our might. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'kol levavcha. Lev is heart. B'kol nafshecha, might with all. Modecha. Nafshechal is soul, and Modecha is intelligence, might, like that. So okay, so that's the essence. And actually, the hafta, it's actually an extension there in Deuteronomy of the prayer called the Shema, And so the Shema Yisrael Adonai Lo, Adonai Echad, bro. Well, okay, Then it goes into V'ahavta et Adonai, love God with all your heart. And if we read a few lines, just one or two lines later, then God says in Deuteronomy, he says, and it's important that you wear a tilak. No, he really says that. I'm not joking.
Every day.
Yeah, it's important that you always wear. He said, mark your forehead. Yeah, So like the Shema and the V'ahavta, including the part about tilak. Yeah, I kind of have that from my Hebrew school days, bar mitzvah, things like that. I forgot the tilak line, the Hebrew of it. I'm sure others here who probably know it. But no, God actually said to make and mark your forehead as that your body is a temple of God. Specifically says mark your forehead, right? So it's a tilak verse, right? And it's in that main verse. So that's why, okay, we've been doing these Christmas special morning programs, I don't know, about 8-9 years. And some of those early years, it was Malini and myself. We didn't have online. And then 1 year, Naveen Krishna hosted and like that. And so we've made it kind of traditional that we'll kind of sing some of what did Jesus actually chant and sing. And we can imagine that he was praying the V'ahavta and the Shema quite a bit. So I think before we go maybe into like reading some things from Jesus's words, we can now do you have a way to make the Shema on the screen, or you're not set up for that?
It's in my email.
Oh, okay.
But we can find it easy online.
We can, yeah. Okay, so Malini will lead us in Shema.
You want to find it online?
Oh, you want me to do that? Okay.
Oh.
Okay. I'm happy to do it. I'm just slower at these things than some others do. I sent an email to Malini yesterday. That might be easier to locate the email. If you go online, I can. Yeah.
If you go in picture online, but just the
there.
picture. If you go to a pitch, because like that you will come. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, image. Yeah, like that one. That's in English.
Everyone reads Hebrew, shouldn't it? No.
These are all in Hebrew.
It's not in English.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
Transliteration.
We really want transliteration.
Transliteration.
Yeah, here it is.
You see it?
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
Is this good?
Good, you got it. That'll
Okay.
work. Let me share screen.
Your computer is different.
Hare Krishna, Yeah, right there. That's good.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's really, we're going to share the screen, and it's the first line.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good.
So Malini will lead us in a Shema Kirtan, and she's just going to sing the first line, not this line that goes Shema Yisrael. That's not. No, that's not it.
That's not it?
It's not it, for some reason.
You want to open Outlook and find the email. I can do that very quickly. Sorry about that. I should have been ready, but I'm not.
Christ forgives.
Christ forgive me.
That's the spirit.
It will take some time.
So there's very similar ones. That one looks so similar.
Yeah, right. Because the first two words, but then it's different.
I don't know why.
Might be a speculation.
Mm-hmm.
Good. Thank you. All right. Okay. So let's.
Yeshua ki
Jai.
jai.
Okay, and we'll take the share screen off. Hare Krishna, thank you, Melanie. Yeah, so now Melanie, she said Yeshua Jija. That's important. I see this as an interesting point because we say, what is this Yeshua? It's Jesus. Precisely. Now, interestingly, in the Hebrew alphabet, there's no J sound. There just isn't a J sound. So however his name was pronounced, it's not Jesus. Just saying, don't shoot the messenger. Okay?
What are you saying?
Yeah. So, and yeah, it's Yeshua. There's a Y.
It's called Jesus in Israel?
Yeshua. Right. So, anyhow, just interesting point. If someone says if someone says Jesus with love and devotion, we're sure that he responds with grace and all that. But still, if we want to know the name as it is,
Singularity.
yeah, right. Good point. Now, if we want to know the name as it is, it would not have been Jesus, actually. Just saying. Okay. All right. So, and neither would God's name be Jehovah, because there's no J sound in that language. Just saying. Okay. Could be some say that because it's Yud Hey Vav Hey, and some say the actual pronunciation is Yadavaya, and there's different speculations, but there wouldn't be a J sound. Okay, so I got various Shastra with me today. This is the 5 books of the Torah, and I've got Thomas A. Kempis, The Imitation of Christ. We probably won't get to many of them. This is a little book of the Psalms, in the Psalms. Okay, so let's. It's not. These are not Shastras I know well. These are not Shastras I know well. And well, I mentioned the part where Jesus is asked, "What's the most important?" And so I'll just turn. I have that's listed in Book of Matthew. Book of Matthew. That's New Testament. And yes, book 22. Okay. And so, again, I don't know where we're going to go here. In this volume, the red parts are spoken directly by Jesus, so I'm going to focus there. So this is Book of Matthew and book 22.
Oh, book 22. Okay.
Chapter 22, I guess it would be called.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we'll read a bit there. And I'm gonna give some purport to some of what we've already said. Chapter 22 here.
It's not organized the same way here.
And not organized the same way. Okay. Okay. So it's the subsection's entitled "The Parable of the Wedding Banquet." So it's chapter 22 in Matthew. Jesus spoke to them again in parables, saying, "The kingdom of heaven is like a king who prepared a wedding banquet for his son. He sent his servants to those who had been invited to the banquet to tell them to come, but they refused to come." We got other versions here if it's easier. Okay. All right, so Jesus is giving a parable about the king of heaven. Okay, the kingdom of heaven. Then he sent some more servants and said, "Tell those who have been invited that I have prepared my dinner. My oxen and fattened cattle have been butchered and everything is ready. Come to the wedding banquet." But they paid no attention and went off, one to his field, another to his business. The rest seized his servants, mistreated them, and killed them. The king was enraged. He sent his army and destroyed those murderers and burned their city. Then he said to his servants, "The wedding banquet is ready, but those I invited did not deserve to come. Go to the street corners and invite to the banquet anyone you find. So the servants went out into the streets and gathered all the people they could find, both good and bad, and the wedding hall was filled with guests. But when the king came in to see the guests, he noticed a man there who was not wearing wedding clothes. Friend, he asked, how did you get in here without wedding clothes? The man was speechless. Then the king told the attendants, tie him hand and foot and throw him outside into the darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. For many are invited, but few are chosen. So Jesus is speaking about, from what I can hear, the Dritavrata, the truly, like if we really want to go back home, back to Godhead, it won't work to be casual. It won't work to be, we need to be urgent about it. This is something I'm getting from that. Now, I'm skipping a bit there, so I know not all versions have subsection titles, but I'm skipping to, still on book 22, text 34, book 22. And it says, hearing that Jesus had silenced the Sadducees, the Pharisees got together. Now again, I'm no scholar here, but my understanding is the Sadducees and Pharisees, they're different types of rabbis, different type of smart to Brahmin rabbis, essentially. Okay, they're like, and who, if essentially as Jesus's pastimes unfolded, both groups became kind of antagonistic towards Jesus because they felt threatened. So they are kind of like institutional priests. Okay, so Jesus had defeated, he silenced the Sadducees, so the Pharisees got together, and one of them, an expert in the law, tested him with this question. So we hear the question is not asked in a humble spirit of inquiry, it's more like in a challenging spirit. Teacher means rabbi. Teacher, which is the greatest commandment in the law? Jesus replied, love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. That's the V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'kol levavcha, b'kol nafshecha, b'kol modecha. This is the first and greatest commandment, and the second is like it, love your neighbor as yourself. All the law and the prophets hang on these two commandments. Okay. So I find a few things interesting here. My purport. Okay. So I find a few things interesting here. One is, so the V'ahavta, love God with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind. It's an extension of the Shema. Hear, O Israel, the Lord of God. So the Shema is so central. But in the Shema, we might detect some sectarianism. Hear, O Israel. Okay? So we might detect some sectarianism. It's specifically about, Shravanam for Israel. Okay, particular people. So, whereas the V'ahavta, again, it's fully universal. Just whoever you are, love your heart, love God with all your heart, all your soul, all your might. So Jesus focused in on that part, not the part that specifically was about the nation of Israel. For me, that's significant. Melanie? Yeah.
I'm just wondering, is Israel like a geographical place, though?
Well,
or even like a type of people, or is it like a consciousness?
I think it can be seen as a consciousness. Still, like Jesus didn't go to the Shema in response to that question.
He didn't go there.
Yeah, so it could be, it's a consciousness. Same time, Jesus, I don't see Israel as a geographical place essentially, but it could be seen as a particular tribe, a particular people, chosen people, Okay. Yeah. And it doesn't mean that God can only choose one people, right? Like that. But
Chosen because of their consciousness.
consciousness,
Not
yeah.
because Janma.
That's the idea. If you trace it back, that okay, this is a people. They stopped the idol worship in the time of Abraham, and they focused on one God and not all these idols.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and Jesus preached only to Jews. This is his followers. His followers, Peter, and then later Paul, and his followers preached to the Goyim, preached to the Greeks and the Romans, and that's why in the New Testament you got lots of letters from Roman villages and like that. But Jesus preached only to the Jews, so he did focus a lot on the Jews like that. And then he goes, that's number one, love God with all your heart, all your soul, all your might, and then he goes to relationships. Okay, so this is important. Love your neighbor as yourself. So it's called the golden rule, like treat others as you would want to be treated. And if we look at, so in the Old Testament, and again, Jesus, he's a rabbi, he's a scholar and living the Old Testament. Here or somewhere, he goes, I did not come to abandon the laws of the Old Testament. I came to fulfill them. So he's not rejecting the Old Testament. He said, I came to fulfill those laws. In the Old Testament, there's 613 commandments, 613. And some of them aren't relevant till the resurrection of the temple again, till the time that the Messiah comes. Of course, the Messiah came. That's the whole thing. But anyhow, so
Waiting.
yeah, so the religious Jews, they're like really like following like whatever 420 of the commandments like that. So they got a lot of rules and regulations going on, and that's their seriousness, and it can also get in the way. Okay, but then there's like the 10 commandments that everyone knows about, and I don't have them memorized, but I do know the first 5, just completely consistent with where Jesus is going here. The first 5 commandments are about humans' relation with God. The second, humans' relation with God, like don't worship idols and things like that. And I don't have them memorized. The second 5 commandments are about humans' relationship with each other. Honor mother and father, things like that. So Jesus, his first response is the first 5 commandments, love God with all your heart, the essence. And the second is about relationships between ourselves. If we want to support each other to be godly, here's some ground rules that will be really helpful. Okay. Okay, now there are so many places we can go. Maybe some here have favorite parts. There's, of course, some of these books, like the book of Matthew and others, they have stories about the birth of Jesus, which has lots of similarities to the appearance of Krishna. I'm looking at here, though, right here, there is a fairly full section with direct quotes from Jesus. So I'm just going ahead a few lines to chapter 23 of the book of Matthew. Chapter 23 of the book of Matthew. And it says, then Jesus said to the crowds and to his disciples, the teachers of the law and the Pharisees sit in Moses' seat, so you must obey them and do everything they tell you, but do not do what they do, for they do not practice what they preach. She likes that. Okay.
Yeah.
They tie up heavy loads and put them on men's shoulders, but they themselves are not willing to lift a finger to move them. So it sounds like he's saying their talk is pretty good, but they're not walking the talk.
And they create rules that are heavy, but they are not following them.
I don't know so much that he's saying they create rules. I think he's saying they're pretty much speaking what they are getting from the parampara. Like he's not so much, I don't see you saying they're concocting rules.
Does he mean by force it bind heavy burdens?
Yes.
Hard to bear and lay them on man's shoulders. Wow.
Yeah.
How do you interpret that part?
Well, I think to follow those 613 commandments, it like actually the religious Jews in Israel, they're called Haredim. And the Haredim translates as those who are in anxiety. Meaning like, I think it's like Bhaktivinoda says, anxieties undertaken in your service, Krishna, are the source of my greatest ecstasy. So the religious Jews, they're in anxiety, Haredim, because they want to make sure they follow all of God's laws. So it is like a burden, and he's saying, but they're not following yet. Everything they do is done for men to see. They make their phylacteries wide, and their tassels on their garments long.
Like big tilaks.
Yeah, they love the place of honor at banquets and the most important seats in the synagogues. They love to be greeted in the marketplaces and to have men call them rabbi. All right, so he's this pretty heavy feedback arc going on here. Yeah. So everything they do is done for men to see. Yes, look at all these shlokas I've memorized, and I've chanted my rounds today. Haven't seen you at the temple for a while, and I'll make sure I'm the one who you see dancing in front of the deity. So he's doing it for show. They make their phylacteries wide. I think the phylactery, that's the tilak, right? Correct. Yes, they call them tefillin, and the tassels on their garments long. Because you got these talis, they wear these the prayer shawls, and the prayer shawls have tassels. In fact, I've heard once there are 613 tassels corresponding with the 613 commandments that God gave in the Old Testament. And so, look, they're dressing in a very showy way. Jesus goes on speaking to his followers, or potential followers. But you are not to be called rabbi, for you have only one master, and you are all brothers. And do not call anyone on earth father, for you have one Father, and he is in heaven. Nor are you to be called teacher, for you have one teacher, the Christ. The greatest among you will be your servant. For whoever exalts himself will be humbled, and whoever humbles himself will be exalted. Trinadapi sunichena tarayvasa hishnuna. Amanina manadina kirtaniya sadari. Just fully aligned with, we can just see here, just like there's nothing even slightly deviant here. It's just like right on. And it's somewhat Gorakishore Das Babaji mood here. It's pretty heavy, but he's just completely aligned. Humility, humble servant, then we can serve God with joy constantly. And if we have false pride, even spiritual false pride, we'll get that. Yes, exactly. Okay, then Jesus continues. All right. Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You shut the kingdom of heaven in men's faces. You yourselves do not enter, nor will you let those enter who are trying to. Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You travel over land and sea to win a single convert, and when he becomes one, you make him twice as much a son of hell as you are. Woe to you, blind guides, and antarasta parmanutrantarastam. That's a Bhagavatam verse. Prahlad Maharaj talks about the blind leading the blind in the name of spiritual life. Same thing here. Woe to you, blind guides! You say, if anyone swears by the temple, it means nothing. But if anyone swears by the gold of the temple, he is bound by his oath. You blind fools, which is greater, the gold or the temple that makes the gold sacred? You also say, if anyone swears by the altar, it means nothing. But if anyone swears by the gift on it, he is bound by his oath. You blind men, which is greater, the gift or the altar that makes the gift sacred? Therefore, he who swears by the altar swears by it and by everything on it. And he who swears by the temple swears by it and by the one who dwells in it. And he who swears by heaven swears by God's throne and by the one who sits on it. Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You give a tenth of your spices, mint, dill, and cumin, but you have neglected the more important matters of the law, justice, mercy, and faithfulness. You should have practiced the latter without neglecting the former. You blind guides, you strain out a gnat, but swallow a camel. All right, so this is Niyamagraha. Jesus is highlighting the Niyamagraha. Niyamagraha, Srila Rupa Goswami says there are certain attitudes, certain practices that are not favorable for devotional service. Two of them are described in the one word Niyamagraha. Niyamagraha has two meanings. One is to neglect rules and regulations whimsically, would neglect rules and regulations that will genuinely help us in coming towards love of God. And the other meaning of Niyamagraha is to follow rules and regulations, but to miss the forest for the trees. To follow rules and regulations, but to miss the point, to miss the essence. And so Jesus beautifully and succinctly and so eloquently covers all of that here. So he says, yeah, so you follow, you need to give 10% of the spices, whatever, there's some rule. Okay, but you're missing justice, mercy, faithfulness, you're missing the vital qualities. And he goes, so you should actually practice the essence, justice, mercy, faithfulness, without neglecting the former. So without neglecting the former means, keep following the letter of the law. Keep following the letter of the law. That's nice. That's important. Follow that and imbibe and be an example of the essence. Because sometimes in the name of all you need to do is love God, so we don't need to get up early or chant rounds or read Prabhupada's books every day. No, follow the rules and regulations with a sincere heart. Again, so this is all Goswami stuff, right?
Yeah. I love number 14. It's so much like Gorkeshwar Das Babaji.
Yeah.
You could see on the dam and all the Brahmins and all the sannyas that were going to the house of the widows.
Yes.
It's still going on.
It's still going on, yes.
Bhajan and Nandao, Bhajanis.
14 is that, woe to you, teachers of the law. You shut the kingdom of heaven in men's faces.
No, it's 14. It said, woe to you, scribe and Pharisees, hypocrite, for you devour widows' houses, and for a pretense make long prayers. Therefore, you will receive greater condemnation.
Yes. Thanks for that.
It's exactly like Gorkeshwar Das Babaji's.
Yes.
The crane, all that kind of behavior so much.
All right, we can read a little more from this section. All right, so I'm on text 25. We're still in chapter 23. Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You clean the outside of the cup and dish, but inside they are full of greed and self-indulgence. Blind Pharisee, first clean the inside of the cup and dish, and then the outside will also will be clean. Yeah, I don't know so many details about all the commandments, but a lot of it has to do with cleaning, and they got a lot of achman going on. The religious Jews, a lot of achman, and you do like this with this hand and like that, and you can touch this after you wash this. So he's saying, yeah, you're following that, and your hearts are full of greed. So what's the point, really? Greed and self-indulgence. Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You are like whitewashed tombs, which look beautiful on the outside, but on the inside are full of dead men's bones and everything unclean. In the same way, on the outside you appear to people as righteous, but on the inside you are full of hypocrisy and wickedness. Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You build tombs for the prophets and decorate the graves of the righteous, and you say, if we had lived in the days of our forefathers, we would not have taken part with them in shedding the blood of the prophets. So you testify against yourselves that you are the descendants of those who murdered the prophets. Fill up then the measure of the sin of your forefathers. You snakes, you brood of vipers. How? Why doesn't he just say what he means? Yeah, okay. You snakes, you brood of vipers. How will you escape being condemned to hell? Therefore, I am sending you prophets and wise men and teachers. Some of them you will kill and crucify. Others you will flog in your synagogues and pursue from town to town. And so upon you will come all the righteous blood that has been shed on earth, from the blood of righteous Abel to the blood of Zechariah, son of Berechiah, whom you murdered between the temple and the altar. I tell you the truth, all this will come upon this generation. O Jerusalem, Yerushalayim, you who kill the prophets and stone those sent to you, how often I have longed to gather your children together as a hen gathers her chicks under her wings, but you were not willing. Look, your house is left to you desolate. For I tell you, you will not see me again until you say, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord.
Wow. Really, there's a big curse for the Jew here.
Curse for the Jew.
Yeah.
Okay. Actually, I was just a day or two ago, I was talking with Ramachandra about cursing for the Jews. You're good. Okay. So, well, okay, yeah, I mean, as for that, we can see that the leaders of the Jewish people of that day, they had an offensive mentality towards the pure devotee, Jesus. So there's reactions. There's reactions for that.
Also, he said, like, you criticize your forefather for doing the same.
Yeah.
And carry the guilt, their guilt.
Yeah.
And do you know what he's speaking about there? In the history of the Jewish people. You know, like he seems to say that it has gone not only for Jesus, but so many prophets and so many saints that came to help them. And that at the time of Jesus, they were criticizing those forefathers who killed those saintly people, but they were doing the same.
Yeah. I know because the Old Testament got lots of prophets. A big part of the Old Testament, many chapters, and it's called the prophets, Nevi'im, the prophets, and so they weren't all. I think in many cases, yeah, they were persecuted by their own people.
And the same thing.
Same thing here.
And it's interesting. He said that you will be crucified.
Yeah.
He was
Yeah.
already telling them what they were
He's
going to do.
he's foretelling, like, yeah, he's got trikaligya. He sees where this is going. Yeah, and just this might not be pretty to say, but because these were the leaders of the tribe back then. Mm-hmm. We said, well, it's different now. Well, it might be different now. You know, if you did a survey of your average Jew in Gainesville, Florida, and you might hear something like, yeah, well, we celebrate diversity, and Jesus, yeah, he had really nice teachings, and he was a great man. We, really nice, appreciative and cooperative. what I actually spent time in 83, 84 in the Esha Torah, it's a yeshiva in the old city of Jerusalem. And, well, first of all, yeah, so I was talking about this with Ramachandra yesterday. So, because the name is Yeshua, but they call the name Yeshu, which is like an acronym, which means may his name be forgotten. You talk about Jesus, and I've heard directly from some in that community, religious leaders in that community, Jesus, oh yes, Yeshua, Yeshu, yeah, he was a liar and a cheater. So I'm just saying, it's not that everyone is, yeah, we should celebrate diversity and things like that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
So there's reaction. Yeah, there's
Yeah,
reaction.
yes.
Yeah. It's unfortunate.
And they were already cursed by the time Jesus came.
Yeah, we see that mentality.
The leaders were already cursed, and Jesus went to really save the reconciled members of the movement.
Yes, true. Yeah. Yeah, you could see he wasn't really looking to transform the Pharisees and Sadducees, but he had followers who were listening, and those who were sincere we see who's telling the truth here.
Yeah.
We see who's sincere in heart.
We probably were oppressed by them also, in some way or another.
We can imagine. Hare Krishna.
And they remind me of some history.
Okay. Well, okay. A well-known. Okay. Staying in the book of Matthew and going to book 5. This is pretty. This might be the most well-known speech of Jesus. I think it's called the Beatitudes, also known as the Sermon on the Mount.
Yes.
Okay. So, also known as this is more love and light. There we were in like
Darkness.
heavy pointing out the dark weeds. So chapter 5 of book of Matthew. Now when he saw, so just to give some geographic, okay, book chapter 4 text 23, Jesus went through Galilee, teaching in their synagogues, preaching the good news of the kingdom, and healing every disease and sickness among the people. So the Galilee, that's the north of Israel. We did lots of Sankirtan there. You got the Sea of Galilee. Remember, we used to park the Sankirtan van, get out, and there would be these date palms.
Wow.
And there would be unlimited fresh dates, like nothing that could be purchased in the supermarket, even if you buy fresh dates in the supermarket. And unlimited fresh dates, and we would feast on them, and we would go to the villages right around the villages, and like there's the town, the city of Tiberias. Okay, so Jesus is in the Galilee area. News about him spread all over Syria, and people brought to him all who were ill with various diseases, those suffering severe pain, the demon-possessed, those having seizures, and the paralyzed, and he healed them. Large crowds from Galilee, the Decapolis, Jerusalem, Judea, and the region across the Jordan followed him. So in modern day names, Syria, Jordan, the West Bank, Judea refers to like the West Bank area, maybe the Negev area. So then, now when he saw the crowds, he went up on a mountainside and sat down. His disciples came to him, and he began to teach them, saying, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called sons of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you, and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. Yeah. It's like so, because even if someone is pure in heart, if we give ourselves to serve Prabhupada, to serve Jesus, well, even if we are pure and in our presentation and our heart, some people will throw stones. Rejoice and be glad, because great is your reward in heaven. For in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you. You are the salt of the earth. But if the salt loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled by men. You are the light of the world. A city on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on its stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before men, that they may see your good deeds and praise your Father in heaven. Do not think that I have come to abolish the law of the prophets. I have not come to abolish them, but to fulfill them. Right? So he's not coming to reject the Old Testament. It's like he's not saying, I'm starting something new here.
It's not starting a new religion.
Right. Yeah. He's renewing, he's rejuvenating the purity that was there thousands of years ago and has become degraded.
Like Bhaktivinoda Thakur.
Like Bhaktivinoda, like Lord Chaitanya, like Bhaktisiddhanta, like Srila Prabhupada. Yeah, he's rejuvenating the purity that was there from ancient times. I tell you the truth, until heaven and earth disappear, not the smallest letter, not the least stroke of a pen will by any means disappear from the law until everything is accomplished. Anyone who breaks one of the least of these commandments and teaches others to do the same will be called least in the kingdom of heaven. But whoever practices and teaches these commands will be called great in the kingdom of heaven. For I tell you that unless your righteousness surpasses that of the Pharisees and the teachers of the law, you will certainly not enter the kingdom of heaven.
It's interesting that it's heaven and earth disappear. Like, it's very aligned with the dissolution of heaven and earth, but then it speaks about the kingdom of heaven as if it was a spiritual world. So
Yeah.
it seems that there is some contradiction there in language. We say, I say to you, till heaven and earth pass away. So that's aligned with creation according to cyclic time.
Yeah.
But then the kingdom of heaven seems to be spiritual. So there is no distinction made here.
Are you able to hear what Malini said? Not so much. Okay. So she's talking about, and what we read, I tell you the truth, until heaven and earth disappear. And then he goes on, and then it will be called the least in the kingdom of heaven. So Malini's saying, like, heaven and earth disappear. That's aligned with the whole idea of cyclic creation and like that. And he seems to talk about the kingdom of heaven as a sort of no difference from Vaikuntha.
Beyond heaven and earth.
Well, first of all, I don't know what parts of this Shastra have come down in a fully authorized way. But I think
it's
Jesus...
So different, all the versions.
Oh, yeah, right. The significant difference.
Yeah.
And if we get into the Jewish translations of the Old Testament, then it's like really different. So, but he's speaking according to time and circumstance. So I can imagine that Jesus isn't paying any attention to that distinction. As far as I know, in the whole Bible, there's no distinction between heaven and what we would call spiritual world Vaikuntha, because he's speaking according to time and circumstance. And
But when you say heaven and earth disappear.
Yes. Well, I think that's he's making a point. That's a way, meaning like they're never going to disappear, or meaning like, look, that's a long time. Like in other words, like he's just trying. He's giving some poetic metaphor to emphasize, like, yeah, follow sadhana. Don't give up sadhana. Follow the rules and regulations. Yeah, don't be like the Pharisees and miss the point and miss the farce. But he's in a poetic way. He's saying, like, follow it's this is important this is important forever. Okay, don't just follow it for today. And this is like a poetic way to say it till heaven and earth disappear. Okay.
Yeah, I get it now.
And basically, yeah, Jesus is giving guidelines to go to heaven, and that's the ultimate. Now, when we get into a broader, when we get into, there's ABCs, and then we get into like calculus. Okay, actually, beyond heaven, there's a Viraj River, but he's just not making those distinctions.
It's not the right audience.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Again, there's so many places we can go. Just any other comments or questions from anyone here? Ramachandra?
Thank you, David. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thanks for your purports. It was very insightful and connecting me to my own heritage that I feel that I missed, because Yeshua, Jesus, he was Jewish, and that's something that you don't hear a lot in Israel, that he was Jewish.
You don't hear a lot about that. Yeah.
And my question, I have like a hobby that I shared with you the other day, that like sometimes with my lunch, I indulge in watching different Christian preachers, like street preachers, just like to see the reactions of like the people, and it's kind of like fascinating for me. It's like some action preaching, and a lot they preach things which sound judgmental, and then people obviously, because in North America people are they know about Jesus, like instructions and teachings. Mostly they know about don't judge and don't be biased and don't condemn each other. And they explain that Jesus was judging, like he was, I guess, judging, but not not criticizing. And I was wondering, what is like, because I did hear like him like criticizing or judging like the rabbis in a sense, and I think that was like very on point. That's like the same thing that, I don't know, I think Krishna appears for, to reestablish religious principles.
Yeah.
At the same time, I wonder what's the difference between like judging and criticizing, and like where it's stopping, like where does it stop to be really beneficial for the people?
Okay. Yeah. Well, for me, it's an Upadeshamrita point. It's nectar of instruction, right? Nectar of instruction. Rupa Goswami says like a realized soul doesn't criticize. Malini's shaking her head. No. Nectar of instruction. It doesn't stay there. What it says is a realized soul, a godly person, is devoid of the propensity to criticize.
Mm-hmm.
So, if we look at Jesus or Prabhupada or Bhaktisiddhanta, one thing we can say is they never criticize. No, it's not true. No.
Yeah, Prabhupada says preaching means criticizing.
Right. So, but it means there's the material propensity to put others down and find their real or perceived weakness or faults and stone them so that I can feel superior. I can feel like I'm good, like that. There's the thing where there was a woman committed adultery or a prostitute or something, and they were like, stone her, because there is some law, you should stone them. But then they went to Jesus, someone did, and said, so, right, what should we do? And Jesus said, yes, whoever is free from sin should throw the first rock. Okay, and then they all went away. Okay, and it's just, don't point out the little plank in someone else's eye until you've removed the big piece of wood from your own eye, like that. So the idea is, that to free ourselves from the material propensity to judge and criticize, to point the fingers at others, to put them down so I feel better about myself. And a pure devotee like Jesus or Bhaktisiddhanta or Srila Prabhupada, they might sometimes, and sometimes Gorakishore Das Babaji, they might sometimes put out shadow points, shortcomings, wickedness, evil. They might sometimes point it out truly with a compassionate heart, truly with an intention, no selfish, subtle or gross agendas, truly with an intention to support everyone, including the person or group who they're criticizing, for everyone's purity and upliftment. So that's the difference, the quality of consciousness.
Compassion and love.
Yeah.
And how does it, like, practically speaking, how does it like manifest their compassion and love beyond like them embodying that? And it's still, I might still like kind of sense it in like a vague way a little bit, and maybe there's like something more concrete like that they.
It's like, I think it's for each of us to know our service, to know our service. And like, if we notice something, okay, is this really my service to point this out? And it gets into like the whole science of sattvic communication, assertiveness, or what Bhagavad Gita calls sattvic communication. That if it is my service to point it out, first of all, if it's not my service, then even if it's true, I'm probably going to create more of a disturbance because it's not my service. But then if it is my service, then let me be intentional to speak the truth, truly in a way that's intended to be beneficial. Truly in a way that's intended to be beneficial. Now, someone might receive it and they might take offense, but that I know that communicating in a way with real intent to create win-win, that I'm really pouring the water on the root of the tree, truly with intention to be beneficial for everyone involved. So as far as knowing when is it my service, there are some guidelines. Ultimately, that's like between us and Prabhupada and Super Soul. We our service to create some forums where it's like, okay, now give your partner feedback, and then it's like within this structure, we kind of endeavor to train ourselves how to give and receive honest feedback, appreciative and constructive, from a place that's truly intended to be life promoting. So those are the principles, and then in each situation we get to apply the principles, maybe in consultation with others. Is it my service to point out what I see is something that's really sabotaging for the spirit soul.
Thank you, David.
Hare Krishna. David. Tada. Od Mashahu. I'm in a Hebrew mode.
Hare Krishna.
Anything else?
Very fascinating.
Very fascinating. Okay. Okay. Um, so maybe we'll go another 10, 15 minutes. I'm going to go to the book of John, which I believe it's the last of the four, I'm going to call them main books of the New Testament. The book of John, because we refer to it. In fact, I'm going to tell you in the next PPTC, which is 2 weeks from today, I'm going to refer to this first verse of the.
What chapter?
It's the book of John, chapter 1. Book of John, chapter 1. We refer to this a lot when we talk about commitments. Book of John, chapter 1. All right. So it begins. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word was God. No, I'm going to read that again because I didn't quite follow. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. So, we say a lot about how, like, Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, names of Krishna, the transcendental vibration. It reveals truth, and it's non-different from the truth that it reveals. So that's the absolute nature of God. So we have that. So actually, there's philosophy here, right? We're hearing a lot of like psychology, morality. So here we really got transcendental philosophy. So that where the Word of God, vibrations emanating from God, the name of God is non-different from God, because not just the Word was with God, and the Word was God. So that's so Vaishnav. He was with God in the beginning. Through him all things were made. Without him nothing was made that has been made. In him was life, and that life was the light of men. The light shines in the darkness, but the darkness has not understood it.
What does it mean? He was in the beginning with God. Speak of Brahma.
He was with God in the beginning?
Yeah.
Um,
Who is he?
I'm going to say that John, who's writing this, I'm going to say supposedly writing this, some extent. I think he's referring to Jesus, the Shaktivesh avatar.
Oh, I see. He was in the beginning with God. Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there is certainly some conjecture that the God of these Old and New Testament is Brahma.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But anyway, I think John in this, he's referring to Jesus was with God in the beginning.
Yeah.
Meaning like
Makes sense.
he did not take an ordinary birth. This is
Yeah, and he's eternal.
Yeah.
Like never was a time when I didn't exist, no all those kings, no intentions, they cease to be.
Yeah.
Like that. Okay.
Okay.
We could not hear Malini.
You were, yeah. So she was confirming her understanding that John is referring to Jesus was with God in the beginning, meaning like he's an avatar. He's not forced to take birth like us. He's with God in personal, affectionate relation, and he's coming here on a mission for God. Continuing with verse 6, there came a man who was sent from God. His name was John. He came as a witness to testify concerning that light, so that through him all men might believe. Mm-hmm. He himself was not the light. He came only as a witness to the light. The true light that gives light to every man was coming into the world. Mm-hmm. So my understanding is that the John who's the author here is different than the John he's writing back. The John he's writing about is John the Baptist. And maybe it's a sort of like Advaita Charya. Advaita Charya is kind of like paving the way and setting the stage and invoking the appearance of Lord Chaitanya. So, of course, again, this doesn't get into distinctions about different tattvas and things like that. Yeah. But essentially, so Advaita Charya, he's not like the Yuga avatar for the age, but he's this very pure, godly soul. Of course, he's Vishnu Tattva, that's another thing. He's and he's invoking the presence. He came before Lord Chaitanya, like John the Baptist came before Jesus.
Yeah, I wonder if there is parallel.
Could you speak loud enough for others to hear?
I wonder if there is parallel with that in Srila Prabhupada's life. I'm just curious.
Well, I would say Bhaktivinoda predicts Bhaktivinoda sending his book to McGill University in the same year that Prabhupada was born. So I see some parallels.
Yeah. Because John the Baptist is like an eternal associate of the Lord too, the way it's described here.
Yeah, we can imagine.
Yeah, but he had a different role.
Different role.
Just.
So I see parallels. Okay. All right, we'll need a few more minutes. The true light that gives light to every man was coming into the world. He was in the world, and though the world was made through him, the world did not recognize him. He came to that which was his own, but his own did not receive him. Yet to all who received him, to those who believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of God, children born not of natural descent, nor of human decision or a husband's will, but born of God. The Word became flesh and made his dwelling among us. We have seen his glory, the glory of the one and only who came from the Father, full of grace and truth. John testifies concerning him. He cries out, saying, "This was he of whom I said, he who comes after me has surpassed me, because he was before me." Okay. From the fullness of his grace, we have all received one blessing after another. First of all, just in these words, I mean, you definitely get like transmigration of the soul, and like it's just completely consistent with Bhagavad Gita description of how the soul, the eternality of the soul. Let's hear. From the fullness of his grace, we have all received one blessing after another. For the law was given through Moses, grace and truth came through Jesus Christ. No one has ever seen God, but God, the one and only, who is at the Father's side, has made him known. Yeah, and that, of course, I'm not into the controversies of Christian theology, but the way it's worded here, it's clear. Jesus is a pure devotee of the Father. It's not that it's not like Jesus is the Father who created the moon, but Jesus is right there at the right side of like that. Now this was John's testimony when the Jews of Jerusalem, also Jerusalem would not be pronounced Jerusalem because there's no J, it's Yerushalayim, for anyone who's interested in the actual thing. And Jews would be Yehudim.
Yeah, Jews.
Yehudim.
It's strange that everything about from the Westerners' point of view, everything starts with a J practically.
Yeah.
Jew, Jerusalem, Jesus, but the G doesn't exist.
Interesting.
It's really.
Yeah. Now this was John's testimony when the Jews of Jerusalem sent priests and Levites to ask him who he was. You are a Levite.
I am a Levi.
Malani Mariglashim is a Levi.
Levi.
Yeah. Right. So there's 12 tribes, and the two priestly tribes. So the main one is the Kohens. We got a Cohen here. We got a Levi here. We're in good association. Good association. Cohens and the Levies are like the priestly tribes. Okay. And then, all right. Okay. Now this was John's testimony when the Jews of Jerusalem sent priests and Levites to ask him who he was. He did not fail to confess, but confessed freely, "I am not the Christ." They asked him, "Then who are you? Are you Elijah?" Now one thing, I mean, this is so clear. Okay, so it means like at that time that, yes, so the head of the directors of Judaism at that time, they're asking John, "Are you Elijah?" So Elijah is a prophet from the Old Testament.
Yeah.
When I lived on Mount Carmel, Ramachandra's from that area, Mount Carmel, Haifa. There's lots of past. That's where Elijah burned to ashes different demons who came, and there's lots of pastimes with Elijah on Mount Carmel. There, you now got University of Haifa there, and Dayat Carmel and Osifia. Anyhow, so Elijah is a prophet from the Old Testament. So they're just casually asking him, "Are you Elijah?" Means like their whole paradigm is transmigration of the soul.
Yeah.
So how modern day Jews or Christians can deny transmigration of the soul? It's just there's no rationale there.
Yeah.
It's right there. So they say, like that is their paradigm. Are you Elijah? He said, I am not. Are you the prophet? He answered, no. Finally they said, who are you? Give us an answer to take back to those who sent us. What do you say about yourself? John replied in the words of Isaiah the prophet, I am the voice of one calling in the desert. Make straight the way for the Lord. It's the book of Isaiah that has, not the only book, but I think the book of Isaiah has many of those predictions of the appearance of Jesus. The Jews say, no, it's not talking about Jesus. The Christians say, yes, it is. But so the book of Isaiah is very important in that whole forecasting prediction thing. Now some Pharisees who had been sent questioned him, why then do you baptize if you are not the Christ, nor Elijah, nor the prophet? I baptize with water, John replied, but among you stands one you do not know. He is the one who comes after me, the thongs of whose sandals I am not worthy to untie. Such a humble statement. The thongs of whose sandals I am not worthy to untie. This all happened at Bethany on the other side of the Jordan, where John was baptizing. I never went there in my years in Israel, but many, like people from Alabama and Kentucky and Ocala, who go to Israel, they will go to this place where John was doing the baptizing, and you can get baptized in the Jordan River today. All right, so
I want to go there.
You want to go there one day? Yeah, well,
take a bath in the Jordan.
In the Jordan, at that very spot. Yeah. The next day, John saw Jesus coming toward him and said, look, the Lamb of God who takes away the sin of the world. This is the one I meant when I said, a man who comes after me has surprised me because he was before me. I myself did not know him, but the reason I came baptizing with water was that he might be revealed to Israel. Then John gave this testimony. I saw the Spirit come down from heaven as a dove and remain on him. I would not have known him except that the one who sent me to baptize with water told me. The man on whom you see the Spirit come down and remain is he who will baptize with the Holy Spirit. I have seen and I testify that this is the Son of God.
So that's when John the Baptist was in prison that they were asking all those questions?
I don't get that he's in prison there. No.
Okay.
No, he's not in prison there. Okay, Hare Krishna. Thank you all very much. Thank you all for your presence and association. Jai, Jai, Appearance Day of Jesus, Ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada, Ki Jai. 5 o'clock we have Bhagavad Gita reading. Yeah, 5 to 7:30 we're doing Bhagavad Gita.
Yes.
Led by Ramachandra.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Jai. Yoshikoki, Jai.
Yes, you are.
Ishamasi.